I'm John Robbins. I first joined the Navy in February of 1977 and spent 4 years in the Navy and was attached to a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine for 3 years, 5 months, and 28 days. Thought of joining one of the services and finally decided on the Navy and had wanted to get into electronics. Back in the 70s, electronics, transistors was still the up and coming thing, and figured let me try my hand at that. There is a certain route that everybody takes when they come on board, and your first 3 months on board is spent in the galley doing what they call mess cooking. And what that really amounts to is you're a busboy, a waiter, the night cleanup crew, the trash taker-outer, and so for 3 months, that's what you do. You help feed 100 guys 3 meals a day. And the funny thing was, you wash dishes and you think that your hands are clean and everything, but they would get so waterlogged and soft that they would pick up any little nick and cut and stuff like that, and my hands actually looked worse sometimes as a dishwasher than they do when I come home at night now as a mechanic. But it was fun. After you do mess cooking for 3 months, then you go into what they call deck division, and that's where you do chipping and painting on the hull, maintenance, on the outside of the ship, and certain things inside. And then finally you progress a little bit. You learn to drive and submerge the ship. So for first year and a half, you do all the shit work before you really get into the field that you have chosen, or as in my case, the field they chose for me. My goal was to finish my 4 years and get out. That was when I first came in. Because like everybody else, who needs this crap? I can't wait till I get out. But as time went on, the last 2 years, my goal was to actually stand watches that were usually regulated, or rather relegated to those of higher pay grades than mine. As an E5, I was standing watches, which E5 is a second-class petty officer. I was standing watches that were usually reserved for E6s, 7s, and 8s. So, and when I finally reached that level, I figured, well, that's it. I don't have to qualify on any other watch stations. I've done all that I can. And the chief of my division came up to me and said, no, you've got one more. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, diving officer. And the diving officer is the one that controls the helmsman and the planesman. He keeps an eye on them, that they maintain course and depth correctly. And he's also the one that trims the submarine to keep it on an even keel when it's submerged, and it's a very important position. And so I started working on that qualification. I knew that I would not ever stand those watches because at that point I only had maybe 2 or 3 months left in the Navy. But the chief was always keeping us prepared and keeping us busy, and making sure that we just moved forward in our training always. I've seen headlights off the coast of Russia. We were that close. looking through the periscope. That was interesting. We also went into, I can't remember the bay, but it's where Muammar Gaddafi had his line of death and threatened to attack anything that came into this particular area off the coast of Libya. That was interesting. And, the Russian ships through a periscope in the morning, watched them raise the flags, morning colors as we called it, and they didn't know we were there. Remember, I was in during the Cold War, and it was us against them, the Russians. So we would shadow their submarines, their nuclear missile carrying submarines, to keep an eye on them, to know where they were at all times. So if they ever got a launch order that they couldn't get off all of their load, that we would be able to take them out before they accomplished their mission. And other times we were just outside Murmansk, which is the main submarine base on the Atlantic Ocean. Actually, it's in the North Sea. And we would watch them come in and out of the harbor and follow them and shadow them, make recordings, sound recordings of them, so that we could identify them through their sound signature. And it was interesting, to say the least, you know, being someplace that you're not supposed to be, with nobody knowing that you're there. So, going to sea did away with about 40% of our preventative maintenance program, because a lot of it you could only do when you were surfaced and in port. So actually the workload got a lot easier for me. I had the attitude of sailors belong on ships and ships belong at sea. So going to sea was not that tough for me. I enjoyed it. What I had hoped the Navy would be, it was honestly pretty much everything that I thought it would be, and a whole lot more. It was a good 4 years. Like anybody, you know, at the time when you've been without sleep for 2 days and dirty and hungry, you know, you wouldn't have given 2 cents for it at the time, but looking back now, I wouldn't take $1 million to not have the experience and education that I gained in the Navy.